In the heart of the Third Reich, confidence wasn't just a feeling, it was a mathematical certainty. The Enigma machine was the iron vault of Nazi Germany, a device so complex that it offered 158 quintillion possible combinations. German commanders, from the lowliest radio operator to Hitler himself, shared a dangerous obsession, the belief that German engineering had created a godlike cipher that no human mind could ever breach. Every day, they broadcasted the Reich's most sensitive secrets into the airwaves, convinced they were whispering in a private room. This was the peak of German arrogance, a pride so blinding that it never occurred to them that their unbreakable shield might actually be a window for the enemy. The first crack in the Iron Vault didn't come from a superpower, but from a small team of Polish mathematicians. While the Germans preened themselves on their superiority, Marian Rejewski and his colleagues were using pure logic to reverse engineer the Enigma's wiring. They realized that the machine's fatal flaw wasn't in its math, but in the fact that it could never encipher a letter as itself. As Poland faced annihilation, they made a desperate, heroic choice. They handed their life's work, their bomb replicas, to the British. It was the ultimate relay race of the mind, passing a flickering candle of hope into the hands of a small country estate called Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park was an unlikely battlefield. It was a sanctuary for misfits, chess champions, crossword solvers, and eccentric professors who didn't fit into the rigid hierarchy of the military. This was the home of Ultra, the most guarded secret of the war. Under the leadership of men like Alan Turing, these intellectuals were fighting a war of attrition against the German ego. They were the silent counteroffensive, working in freezing wooden huts, fueled by endless cups of tea and the terrifying knowledge that if they failed, Britain would starve. While Germany relied on the cold perfection of a machine, the Allies relied on the messy, brilliant creativity of the human spirit. To catch a machine, you need a machine. Alan Turing understood that human brains alone couldn't move fast enough to beat Enigma's daily resets. He designed the bomb, a mechanical predator that could simulate the work of 36 Enigmas at once. It was a roaring, clicking monster of brass and copper, tirelessly hunting for the cribs, the small mistakes German operators made. Every time the bomb stopped, it meant a secret had been exposed. This was the birth of the computer age, forged in the fires of a world war. Turing wasn't just breaking a code, he was building the future, creating an artificial intelligence that could pierce the veil of Nazi secrecy. In the North Atlantic, Admiral Karl Donitz was playing a deadly game of chess. He believed his U-boat wolf packs were invisible hunters. Even when his submarines were being sunk with surgical precision, Donitz refused to suspect Enigma. His pride told him that the British were too stupid to crack German math. He blamed spies, he blamed traitors, he blamed new types of radar. He blamed everything except his own machine. This systemic arrogance was his undoing. Because he couldn't imagine a flaw in his system, he kept his captains talking on the radio, filling the sky with digital maps that led the Royal Navy straight to their targets. The greatest weapon against Enigma wasn't math, it was human laziness. German operators were creatures of habit. Every morning at 6 a.m., they sent the same weather reports. They frequently began messages with the same formal greetings, or ended them with Heil Hitler. To the codebreakers at Bletchley Park, these were cribs, anchors in a sea of randomness. The Germans were so confident in their machine that they forgot that people are predictable. By using these formal rigidities against them, the British were able to pry open the Enigma's settings day after day. The Nazi obsession with order and protocol became the very rope the Allies used to hang them. Sometimes the war of minds needed a physical strike. In May 1941, the British achieved a pinch that changed history. They captured U-110 before it could be scuttled. Inside, they found a working Enigma in the Holy Grail, the daily settings books. This wasn't just a tactical win, it was a total breach of German security. Yet the Germans believed their crew had destroyed everything. They never knew their most secret books were now on a desk in England. This failure to confirm the loss of their equipment was the ultimate expression of German overconfidence. They continued to use the compromised codes, essentially handing the Allies a master key to the Atlantic. The stakes of the silent war were measured in calories and lives. Britain was an island being strangled by U-boats. Without the intelligence from Bletchley Park, the UK would have been starved into surrender by 1942. Every decrypted message meant a convoy could be rerouted away from a waiting wolf pack. Every break in the code meant another week of food for the civilian population. The codebreakers weren't just solving puzzles, they were the invisible shield between a nation and starvation. The silence of their work was absolute, while the explosions at sea were the only visible proof of their failure or success. For a brief, terrifying moment in 1942, the lights went out at Bletchley Park. The Germans, in a rare fit of security consciousness, added a fourth rotor to their naval Enigma. Suddenly, the British were blind. This period, known as the Blackout, was the bloodiest of the Atlantic War. Allied convoys were being decimated, and the codebreakers could only listen to the static on the radio, knowing that every minute of silence meant another ship was sinking. The German arrogance reached its absolute peak here. They believed they had finally achieved perfect security. They laughed at the idea that anyone could pierce this new level of complexity. But this silence didn't signify a German victory. It was merely the calm before the ultimate technological storm. The Allies weren't giving up. They were building something even bigger, faster, and more dangerous to hunt the ghost in the radio. In 1942, the Germans introduced the M4, the four-rotor Enigma. Overnight, Bletchley Park went dark. For 10 agonizing months, the Allies were blind. U-boat sinkings reached a terrifying peak. This was the moment German arrogance seemed justified. They believed they had finally reached the level of absolute security. But they underestimated the tenacity of their enemy. While Hitler celebrated his invincibility, the British were building faster machines and launching more daring raids. The blackout didn't break Bletchley, it forced them to evolve. It was a race against time, where the prize was the survival of the Western world. As the war escalated, the Germans began using the Lorenz cipher, a code even more complex than Enigma. To crack it, the British built Colossus, the world's first electronic programmable computer. This was a titan of glass and wire, processing data at speeds that would have been unthinkable to the Nazi high command. Colossus didn't just read messages, it read Hitler's mind. It intercepted the strategic communications between the Führer and his top generals. The Germans were so convinced of their technological superiority that they didn't even realize a computer existed. They were fighting a 19th century war of secrets against a 20th century digital machine. The success of D-Day was the ultimate triumph of ultra-intelligence. Because the Allies could read German codes, they knew Hitler believed the invasion would come at Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. They were able to monitor the German reaction to their fake radio traffic in real time. They watched as the German generals moved their divisions into the wrong places, lured by a ghost army. On June 6, 1944, the Allies didn't just land on a beach, they landed in a gap in the German defense that they had seen through the Enigma machine years before. The invasion succeeded because the Germans were blinded by a code they thought was perfect. When the guns finally fell silent in May 1945, the secret war of Bletchley Park became a ghost story. Winston Churchill ordered the destruction of the bomb machines and the burning of the transcripts. The 10,000 people who had shortened the war by at least 2 years were sent home with a warning. If they ever spoke of their work, it would be considered treason. They received no parades, no medals, and no public thanks. They watched as the world credited the victory to tanks and planes, while they alone knew that the war was won in a quiet garden in Buckinghamshire. The ultimate secret was kept for 30 more years, a final act of discipline that matched the brilliance of their work. In 1974, the world finally learned the truth. The revelation that the Allies had been reading Enigma for almost the entire war sent shockwaves through the historical community. For the former German officers, it was a moment of absolute humiliation. They realized that their invincibility was a lie. They had been played like puppets in a grand theater of intelligence. The ghost in the radio was finally given a name: Bletchley Park. This revelation didn't just change history, it birthed the computer age. We now know that the modern world was built by those who stayed silent, proving that the loudest voice in war is often the one you never hear. Today, the Enigma machine is a symbol of the dangers of overconfidence. It stands as a warning that no wall is too high and no code is too strong for the determined human mind. The ghost in the radio reminds us that in the age of information, arrogance is the deadliest weapon an enemy can use against you. The Germans built a machine to save their empire, but instead they built a mirror that showed the Allies exactly how to destroy them. The rotors have stopped turning, but the lessons of Bletchley Park live on in every computer and every secret we keep today. This has been the story of how German pride exposed their darkest secrets. This is WW2 Uncut, a story. Thank you for watching.